Yo, so guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to History of Nuclear Power, Summary on a Map. This is sort of like one of those reactions I would have done back in maybe like a year ago. I sort of swayed away from certain reactions that I used to do and that I used to really enjoy. And yeah, I feel like maybe I'm just trying to sort of get back on the sort of road of them kind of reactions again, because I used to really just find them interesting and that kind of stuff. But let me know some more sort of videos maybe related to this or other videos similar that you might want to see in future. And I mean, I'll be sure to do so. But we're going to jump into this. Links are in the description to my Patreon if you're interested in that. Same for my Instagram, my Twitter, and same for my second channel. But let's just jump into this, man. I don't know if this is... I think this is probably going to start from the Hiroshima Nagasaki bombings, right? I don't know. I guess beforehand there was obviously signs of it, but I don't know. I think that's when it first started.
We begin in 1896 in Paris.
What? This is like 50 years before I thought it was even going to pop up.
Physicist Henry Becquerel accidentally discovers during an experiment that uranium leaves a trace or darkens a...
Oh, I guess the history is like when this is first, they found out when this is first even a thing. I see. My bad.
Photographic plate without any other light source. He concludes that uranium naturally emits a ray he calls uranique in French. In the following years, physicists Pierre and Marie Curie discover other elements that also naturally emit radiation. They call the phenomenon radioactivity. Later, Ernest Rutherford, a British physicist born in New Zealand, suggests that radioactivity is radiation that accompanies the disintegration of atoms, which were previously considered to be indestructible. Other findings are then used to better understand the structure of the atom, with electrons revolving around a nucleus composed of protons and neutrons. In 1938, two German chemists, Hahn and Strassmann, discover nuclear fission. Bombarding an atom of uranium with a neutron, it is divided into two, releasing energy. The following year in Paris, Frédéric Joliot-Curie discovers that during the nuclear fission of uranium, 3 neutrons are ejected, which in turn could cause further fission of atoms. He discovers the ability to initiate a chain reaction and thus produce a large amount of energy.
Oh, the Manhattan Project.
In Europe, World War II breaks out. While Germany continues to conduct research on uranium, Albert Einstein is convinced by Hungarian physicists to sign a letter addressed to Roosevelt, the President of the United States, informing him of recent nuclear discoveries and the possibility of creating a very powerful bomb using uranium.
Einstein? Wait, Einstein snaked Germany? Oh, what a boy, man. What a guy.
The United States benefits from the influx of European scientists fleeing war and invests in research.
Big man Albert, come
At
on.
the University of California, Glenn Seaborg discovers that irradiated uranium produces a tiny amount of plutonium, a new metal that is radioactive and fissile. That is, it can trigger a chain reaction. In Chicago, Enrico Fermi creates the first atomic pile and for the first time manages to control the first chain reaction of the fission of uranium atoms. Research is accelerated and substantial resources are invested. The United States secretly launches the Manhattan Project in collaboration with Canada and the United Kingdom. Top scientists gather in about 30 secret...
See, I've heard about the Manhattan Project, but I didn't know who was involved. That's a phrase that I know, or a term. I've just heard of it. Maybe it was in history in school or something, but it just sounds familiar. But I never actually knew what it was for, or maybe I forgot what it was for. I just didn't listen in class, but I did definitely hear about it before.
Locations with the best laboratories at the time made available to them. Their goal is to create the atomic bomb.
Within 2 years. Madness.
The goal is to create a bomb from uranium and another from plutonium. In nature, uranium is composed of more than 99% of uranium-238, that is a nucleus of 92 protons and 146 neutrons, and 0.7% of uranium-235 with 3 neutrons less. Only the latter is fissile and therefore useful in the project. The challenge is isolating and concentrating it to obtain so-called enriched uranium. The United States manages to produce 64 tons of highly enriched uranium to be used in the manufacture of the first bomb. By propelling a highly enriched uranium block onto another, the material becomes supercritical. Fission begins, and in a split second, a chain reaction ensues, releasing tremendous amounts of energy. For a plutonium bomb, a maximum of uranium piles are created in order to collect the plutonium produced. A few pounds are concentrated in the center of the bomb. By simultaneously causing explosions all around, the material is compressed, becomes supercritical, and explodes.
First uses, we know this.
On 16 July 1945, the first successful nuclear test takes place in the desert of New Mexico. By
Must have been
this
so
point,
scary
Germany
for them
had
to obviously test it in their own country, because they probably weren't, well, they definitely weren't going to be sure at all what was actually going to happen. I mean, it could have gone horribly wrong. Luckily, it didn't for the American people there. But
already surrendered. Only the Empire of Japan is still at war against the United States. After Japan refuses to surrender unconditionally, the United States drops 2 atomic bombs on the country, a uranium bomb on Hiroshima and a plutonium one on Nagasaki. The 2 bombs cause about 200,000 civilian casualties.
Jeez.
Days later, Japan surrenders. With the United States demonstrating its power to the world, the USSR accelerates its own nuclear program to try and catch up. The USSR conducts its first nuclear test. During the Cold War, both powers
4
engage
years
in a
later.
frantic arms race. Large sums are spent to gain technological superiority and possess the world's largest nuclear arsenal with the
I do find it so funny how Russia and the US were sort of they were kind of on the same side to a certain degree during World War II. And as soon as it was over, Russia was like, "Yeah, we gotta fuck these boys up. We gotta catch up to them." But I guess they were like sort of hiding behind the fact that they were not necessarily on Germany's side on World War II. And I don't know if the US was sort of prepared, or the UK or whatever Europe was prepared for then Russia to sort of then become this superpower. Was it always like on the cards that Russia was going to be the next sort of superpower? And like military wise, or in terms of their army, it was just going to be insane.
Sensible aim of deterring the enemy from attacking. While the United Kingdom tests its first atomic bomb, the United States tests its first thermonuclear bomb.
Where does Where does the UK test them? Because it's so small. I wonder where they are tested in the UK. That's kind of scary thought, because it's such a small bit of land.
Also known as the hydrogen or H-bomb. This is a fusion bomb, that is, it reproduces the reaction occurring in stars by fusing 2 light atoms, deuterium and tritium, under high pressure and a temperature of several million degrees Celsius. To achieve these conditions, it is decided to use the atomic bomb as a trigger. The explosion of the plutonium bomb creates the right conditions to trigger the fusion of atoms. The explosion that follows is far more powerful than nuclear fission. The Soviets in turn develop the H-bomb.
Jeez.
In parallel, research is made to develop nuclear power. The first nuclear power plants appear. The majority of future reactors would be with pressurized water. In the core of the reactor is a vessel in which low-enriched uranium is placed and used as fuel. Chain reactions are controlled to last about 3 years. The heat emitted increases the temperature of pressurized water in the primary circuit. This circuit is brought into contact with the secondary circuit, in which water heats to transform into steam. This is used to rotate the turbine, which is linked to a generator that produces electricity. A cooling circuit pumps water from a river or sea to cool the vapor in the secondary circuit. Sometimes cooling towers are built to cool the water in the last circuit. To encourage research in nuclear power, the International Atomic Energy Agency, or the IAEA, is created under the aegis of the United Nations. The organization is responsible for ensuring the safe and peaceful use of nuclear energy. In addition, nuclear would also be used in medicine, notably in medical imaging and the treatment of certain
Oh, I guess
cancers.
like, wait, nuclear. Would would that I guess that involves like obviously chemotherapy and stuff, but X-rays and all that kind of stuff. I guess it is because like radiation. Like whenever you sort of go to hospital, you'll see like a sign like just sort of signaling not to go here because this is where X-rays happen or whatever. So yeah, that's actually kind of wild. I didn't even sort of expect that. So I guess nuclear sort of power and sort of nuclear things or whatever. I mean, I guess it is there's so many good things that have come from it. I always see it as such a bad thing, but I come to think of it, it's actually not. It's just there's worries that it's going to be used in a very bad way, and right worries because we see sort of how many nuclear bombs there are and all this kind of stuff. But when you think about it, there's actually a lot of really good things that have come from it. Jeez, I've never really taken time to sort of think about all the other sort of aspects of it.
While France tests its first atomic bomb, the arms race between the USSR and the United States takes a turn for the worse. The two powers have already developed intercontinental missiles and nuclear submarines. The USSR conducts the most powerful test of the Tsar bomber with a capacity of 50 to 57 megatons of TNT. The following year, the US tests a hydrogen bomb at an altitude of 400 kilometers. The explosion creates an artificial aurora visible even from New Zealand, while the emitted radiation damages at least 8 satellites. The same year, while the United States threatens Soviet territories with nuclear missiles installed in Turkey and Italy, the USSR places in Cuba nuclear missiles pointed at the United States. Just as tensions build to a climax, negotiations take place between the two powers, after which both parties withdraw their missiles and the situation calms down.
Thank God for that. Thank God for that.
China tests its first atomic bomb. The United States and Soviet Union takes a dim view of the arrival of new competitors. Via the UN, they propose a treaty on the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons. This differentiates the 5 so-called nuclear powers from the rest of the world. Existing nuclear powers cannot share knowledge or supply weapons, while remaining countries cannot attempt to obtain the atomic bomb.
That's wild.
In addition, nuclear powers are supposed to disarm as much as possible. This treaty would gradually be signed by all countries of the world, with the exception of India, Pakistan, and Israel, which denies having atomic weapons despite heavy suspicion of the contrary. Latin America goes further by creating the first populated area free of nuclear weapons.
Shout out to them, man. Shout out to South America. And obviously Mexico too, and Central America.
The United States and Soviet Union agreed to limit the production of strategic weapons.
Agree to limit, and then you see how many they have now.
1973 sees the world's first oil crisis. In a short time, the price of a barrel of oil explodes, undermining global powers whose economy largely depends on the black gold. The world looks for alternatives to ensure their energy supply. France and Japan mainly rely on nuclear energy. In the following years, many power plants would be built around the world. In India, a so-called peaceful nuclear test takes place, worrying its Pakistani rival, which in turn embarks on nuclear research. In 1979, a major nuclear accident takes place in the United States. One of the reactors at the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant surges and the primary circuit leaks. As the fuel is no longer submerged, it overheats and then melts in its vessel. Fortunately, the containment resists and prevents radioactive leaks.
Thank God for that. Imagine what would have happened. What was the possibilities if that happened? Would it have possibly been worse than Chernobyl? Because I don't know about the location. Is a location because it looked like it was a bit closer to like. Let's just see. Washington, you got like New York and Boston, so it's not Philadelphia like here. So I don't know what city this would be in, but yeah, what was like? I guess that was a really, really big thing. that luckily I didn't hear about, because obviously if I had heard about it, it would have probably meant that it was a lot more catastrophic.
Melts in its vessel. Fortunately, the containment resists and prevents radioactive leaks.
Thank God for
A
that.
few years later, at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, after a series of human errors, technicians lose control of the reactor. When the temperature of its core becomes too high, an explosion blows up the concrete roof, part of which...
If you've not seen the Chernobyl series, mate, it's incredible. It is incredible. And when you learn about sort of what the people had to go through, it's so sad. And it's just... It's one of the like the best, but also saddest series that I've seen. Again, I'm sure you probably have seen it, but if you haven't, honestly, you got to check it out.
falls and fractures the vessel. A highly radioactive cloud is released into the air. It spreads and contaminates a large part of the European continent. Around the power plant, a 2,600 square kilometer exclusion zone is created and more than 200,000 people are displaced. Around the world, the accidents generate or strengthen popular opposition to nuclear power, which puts a heavy brake on the development of the industry. After the fall of the USSR and the end of the Cold War, the US and Russia continue to reduce their nuclear arsenals. In addition, after more than 2,000 official nuclear tests in the world,
Look at the numbers, man. Jeez, like where does the UK do the test? Like the US, I guess the US has got like island nations and stuff, and also the country's just huge. Same with Russia. But like, where does the UK do the tests? I gotta see this because like you look at India. India's huge and they've done 47. Where does... I guess maybe like that, the mountains in Scotland. Conducted 12 atmospheric tests between 1952 and 57 on Australian territories at... Oh, so they do it like in like near Australia. Poor Australia, poor Oceania, man. Like these countries, they don't even have. Like these are powerful countries. You've got Oceania, New Zealand, and like the countries here too. They don't have any of these arms, and they've got like, again, they're wealthy countries. They're well-off countries, and they've just got all these tests being done kind of closer to them. Like it's wild, man.
the
Fuck.
Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty,
Like it's always in this ocean and this ocean here.
or the CTBT, is introduced. It does not enter into force because out of the 44 countries with nuclear reactors at the time, 3 do not sign it and 5 others sign but do not ratify it. 2 years later, India and Pakistan conduct a series of nuclear tests.
Oh, man.
Abdul Qadir Khan, considered the father of the Pakistani atomic bomb, acknowledges having developed a clandestine network originating in Dubai, which has been providing Libya, Iran, and North Korea with the plans and materials necessary to create an atomic bomb.
Fuck's sake.
North Korea,
Why,
after
man?
withdrawing from the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, now declares that it has carried out its first nuclear test. At the same time, Iran announces that it has successfully enriched uranium, which worries the international community. Israel, for its part, maintains ambiguity over its nuclear program. Many believe the country has dozens of atomic weapons, but the latter neither confirms nor denies reports to deter any potential enemy.
Nuclear waste.
One of the advantages of nuclear power is that it emits little carbon dioxide. However, it generates radioactive waste with a lifespan of up to several 100,000 years. While most of the waste has a lifespan of a few decades, current technologies do not offer a definitive solution for high-level, long-lived waste. Most countries rely on deep geological repositories to store nuclear waste more than 300 meters under the Earth's surface.
Oh, wow. This
On
is
March 11,
the other nuclear plant that exploded, right? The one in Japan.
2011, Japan suffers a triple disaster. After a
tsunami.
9.1
Earthquake.
magnitude earthquake, the most violent ever recorded in the country, its coasts are hit by a powerful tsunami with a height of over 10 meters, affecting the Fukushima nuclear plant.
But why would you have it on
prevent
the
the
coast?
cooling of the core of its reactors. Within days, 4 reactors explode, releasing a highly radioactive cloud that is blown towards the Pacific Ocean, reaching the North American continent and then spreading throughout the Northern Hemisphere.
Jeez,
All
man.
39 Japanese nuclear reactors are then shut down. In the aftermath, Germany announces a phasing out of nuclear power. Elsewhere, most nuclear countries review the safety of their plants. While 9 countries still have 16,000 nuclear bombs, at the UN, a treaty on the prohibition of nuclear weapons, which aims at the complete elimination of nuclear weapons, is voted by 122 countries. Only the Netherlands votes against, while Singapore abstains. But the vote is marked above all
Netherlands, why?
by the absence of many countries, including the nuclear powers and member countries of NATO. If the treaty is ratified by 50 countries, it will come into force. Today, 34 countries have already ratified it. In terms of nuclear power, 417 operating reactors produce just over 10% of the world's electricity. 46
Ooh.
reactors.
Sorry, I've just burst your eardrums. But again, you look at the UK and how small it is. 15 in this little area, man. And when you say that, look at France, 58 in this small area. God damn. Jeez,
of the
man.
world's electricity. 46 reactors are under construction, including 10 in China, whose energy needs are increasing. Elsewhere in the world,
Yeah, I
the
bet.
nuclear fleet is aging. 2/3 of global reactors are older than 30 years, out of their originally planned lifespan of 40 years.
Oh,
Their
stop,
future
man.
dismantling promises to be costly. New generations of nuclear
It's a
power
scary
plants
thought.
struggle to meet the world's rising energy needs, while its construction suffers significant delays and additional costs. Meanwhile, 35 countries are collaborating around the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor, which is being carried out in France. The aim is to study the possibility of building nuclear fusion power plants over the long term. Its budget has already jumped from 5 to 19 billion euros. But if the project is successful, it could offer a new type of power plant that would produce a large amount of electricity with little raw material and very little radioactive waste.
Fuck me. That would be good. That would be good. Let's hope that comes into fruition because, I mean, yeah, it just sounds good. USA places nukes in Turkey. USSR places nukes in Cuba. USA, surprise Pikachu face. I know exactly what face they're on about as well. Very good video. Just one correction. Chernobyl did not have a containment building around the reactor, just a normal industry building. That is why 3 Mile Island accident was contained, because it had a containment building. If Chernobyl had a containment building too, it would not have contaminated the place with its radiation. Our rejection of nuclear power was a massive mistake, and the environment has paid dearly for it as we continue to rely on fossil fuels. Yeah, I did actually do a video reacting to like why nuclear power, well not why, it was to do with nuclear power, actually how it is, if used correctly, is a lot better than fossil fuels, etc. In school, history is boring. YouTube, say no more. The gods gave us fire, but blowing stuff up, that was our idea. Damn straight. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this reaction. Again, I'm sort of giving a little bit of a throwback to my older sort of style videos, but if you want more of this stuff, let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to do so. But yeah, until next time, like, subscribe.